Hello, welcome to another Ask Your Mentor Anything Live. This Friday we have with us Javier Castillo. Hello, Javier, how are you?
Doing well, Virginia. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So as always, I introduced this initiative that takes place not exclusively. Lately, I have expanded the network. So it started in the Mentoring for Translators group. So if you're not a member and you want to participate in the discussion, become a member. It's a totally free community on Facebook. And we broadcast every Friday, almost every Friday, about a specific topic related to the business side of the translation industry. So today's topic, as you can see here in the title, is diversification to protect your career as an interpreter or translator. And this topic was selected by Javier. And I knew that Javier has been talking about this topic a lot. So I thought it was a great opportunity, especially because of the developments of COVID, the pandemic, and so on, to discuss it with you. So before we introduce our speaker today, I would like you to make sure that you can use the comments below. Let us know where you're watching us from. So I would love to know, say hello, that you're here with us. And of course, if you have any questions that you would like us to address during the live, this is your chance to make the most of us being here with you. And of course, Javier, ask Javier anything related to our topic and of course, the business side of translation. So Javier, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself to those that they might not know you already?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me here.
Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Always great to see you. So Javier Castillo, I am a Spanish interpreter, translator, consultant, trainer. I live and work primarily in Greenville, North Carolina, over in the United States. I have worked as an interpreter, translator, language professional. I'll just use that as a catch-all, language professional for the last 20 plus years. I think I officially started in 1999.
Wow.
Yeah. So I currently work primarily as a federal court interpreter in the courts here in the United States, as well as a conference interpreter, contract interpreter for the U.S. Department of State. And I also do medical interpreting, and I have done interpreter training. And for the last year, I have been teaching webinars for interpreters and translators and other language professionals. So
we can talk about that. Yeah, we can talk about that in detail later. So I see some comments. Are you able to see the comments, Javier, yourself? So hello, Juliana, Erica, Rosa Maria, and Lorena. If you want us to make sure that we see your name and also to show your comments, please use the link of the StreamYard that you will find in the description box of this live, and give the permission to StreamYard to use your name, because otherwise we see also Facebook users, so we are not able to see your names, even though I see them through my mobile. So hello, Lorena, Erika Kugler, Rosa Maria Carrasco. Let us know where are you watching us from. Ileana Cari, always from Italy. Michelle de Jong Mutimbo, hi from the Netherlands. Hello, Michelle. And of course, we would love to address your question. This is the Ask Your Mentor Anything initiative to ask us anything. So use the comments below and let us know if you have any questions about Javier, for Javier, and in general for our profession, and of course our topic. So Javier, before we get into the questions, the most common questions from translators for you, I would like to share how we met, because I always, I'm really into promoting or showing the importance of networking and attending international events. And I find it really helpful to showcase that in a practical way. So most of my guests here are people that we've met before. We follow each other online, and usually the occasion is an international event or conference. So a conference, so if you remember, it was in Valencia, if I'm not mistaken, and it was IAP, International Association for Professional Translators and Interpreters conference, annual in 2000, that in Europe, 17 or 18.
Yes, all those years.
But it was so nice. We had such a great time. Back then you were a speaker as well at that conference. And since then we kept online the connection. And of course now there is an opportunity for us, and we might have more opportunities to meet each other online. And thank you, of course, for accepting my invitation, being here with me. Is there anything else you would like to share that I didn't mention?
I think that you covered it. For those of you who don't know, IAPT, it's the International Association of Professional Translators and Interpreters. I think IAPT.
We have Lorena here. Yeah, Lorena says it was 2018, so she's in the chat. Thank you, Lorena.
Some members and staff members here. It's a fantastic organization. I am actually the head of the U.S. chapter of the organization, and I was brought into it by other colleagues, two of my dear friends, Tony Rosato and Heidi, who I work with at the State Department and in other conferences. They say, Javier, you've really got to join this association. You've really got to come. I'd seen it. I had, seen it published around, kind of knew it existed, but didn't really know anything about it. And I went to the first conference. My first conference was in Bordeaux, and it was amazing. I got to see and meet amazing translators and interpreters from all over the world, and got out of the silo of understanding what interpreting is in the United States, because we can be so caught up in our day-to-day work, and we only see the people we work with. We know the contacts we make in things that we continuously do. But when you step outside of those bounds, other opportunities make themselves available to you. And so I went to the conference. It was amazing. I made some great connections. The conference after that was, I think, in Buenos Aires. I was asked to be a speaker at that one. The following year was in Valencia. I was asked to be a speaker at that one as well. That opened up these amazing opportunities. So yeah, highly recommend IAPT as a professional association. So
I can second that, because I'm also the head of the Greek section and chapter of the association. So I totally second that, and I can't wait to help this association more. So we have Lorena here, who's a very active member also. Hello, Lorena, and also Dorota from Poland. Hello, Dorota. Hello, Maria Baker. Good morning, says Camilla Trankels from Argentina. Hello. I'm always surprised that people, they watch us from all over the world and from several networks. So thank you for joining us. Yes, right, says Lorena. It was 2017 and 18. Looking forward to meet you next in Romania. Amazing. Yes, you're closer to. I've been to the IAPT of Athens, International Association of Professional Translators and Interpreters here in Athens, Greece. It was 2014. And since then, I think that my second one was in Valencia, and it was amazing. Yeah, conference and networking opportunity. And we have the practical evidence here that we are here with Javier. So let's start with the questions, because we have the most common questions that mentees, they look forward to hearing your answer to that. So usually they ask, for example, if you remember, how did you start out as a translator? So you studied the profession, or it happened? And also, if you remember, how did you get your first paying clients? I can't wait.
So this story is a little different, and maybe not so different. In the United States, the requirements to, the barriers to entry are really low to be a professional interpreter or translator in most fields. So I was a junior in college. I was studying international business, Spanish and French. I wanted to do something with international sales. I heard that they needed interpreters at the courthouse. And so I walked over to the public defender's office, and I introduced myself to the secretary. I said, "Hi, I hear you guys need Spanish interpreters." She said, "Yes. Do you speak Spanish?" I said, "Yeah." "Great. We have a case on Thursday. Can you please go to this courtroom with this attorney?" And just like that, I was a professional court interpreter. We'll talk more about that in a second.
Studies or background in that sector back then, I suppose, without studies or anything.
I'm sorry?
Without any studies related to the profession back then.
Right. Had no idea, had no business doing it.
Amazing, yeah. Great
I was there, they had a need, and I seem to have looked the part. I'll talk about that in addition. As right around the same time, I happened to meet a guy. We bonded over, I think, at a party. A few weeks later, I ran into him on campus, and he said, "Hey, Javier, I'm getting ready to go to Miami. And so my position as an interpreter at the hospital is going to be open. Are you interested in interpreting at the hospital?" I said, "Sure." So I went, and there I actually had to interview. And the manager at the time was actually was my former soccer coach from years back. And but I was there. I had to submit to a small test of interpreting abilities. And despite not really having studied interpreting at all, not even knowing that that was a career choice, I passed their exam, and I started working as an interpreter at the hospital. So when I wasn't in class Monday through Friday, I was in the courthouse interpreting for trials, for hearings, or at the jails, or working with attorneys. Weekend nights, I was at the hospital. My buddies were. I worked from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Fridays, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on Saturdays, and 7 to 11 on Sundays. So my buddies at 10 o'clock were at the bar. I was in labor and delivery or shock trauma.
Like a doctor, you had the doctors.
Yes, and I fell in love with the profession. I mean, who gets to do this, right? Mm-hmm. If my friends were in stats class, I was interpreting for a murder trial. They were at the bar. I was in the middle of an operation. Mm-hmm. I realized that that was my calling. I loved what I did. I saw some interesting opportunities. I saw some things that you don't get to see unless you're a doctor. You're not there. Unless you're a lawyer, you're not present at these things. I found that despite my lack of training, I had an innate ability to do the job somewhat well. And when I graduated, I said, this is going to be my career. And so I decided then to start studying interpreting. At that time, North Carolina had just entered into the consortium to certify state court interpreters. And I said to myself, that's going to be, if I can one day become certified to work in Superior Court in Greenville, Pitt County, that would be the end all be all. That would be my career goal, become a certified interpreter.
Very interesting. Amazing.
And so then I joined the Carolina Association of Translators and Interpreters. I joined the ATA. I joined NAJIT, the National Association of Judiciary Interpreters and Translators. Anything that had the word interpreter or translator that was available, I joined it and became immersed. And I took every class that I could find. I looked at options. For a master's degree, there were only a few places in the United States at that time that offered master's degrees. And then I made a choice that changed my life. The interpreting exam for state court, for those of you who don't know, it has a 20% pass rate. It's extremely difficult. For federal court, it has a 4% pass rate. Wow. And so I knew I needed to study and do everything that I could to pass this state exam. And so I found this course out in Arizona. It was a 3-week course it's called the Agnes Hari Institute. And it's a course for federal court interpreters, intensive 3 weeks. I went there and I had studied so much for my exam that when I got there were about 60 participants from all over the United States, different degrees of skill and experience. I was 21, and they give you an entrance exam to see where you fall into beginner, intermediate, or advanced. When I got there, I'd been studying so much that I was put into the advanced group. There, I was with about eight other colleagues, and one of them was a guy by the name of Mark Fallow, who happened to be the coordinator for the interpreters at the U.S. Department of State. Yeah. After spending 3 weeks with him, he said, "Javier, you've got to come to D.C. and work with us." So I said, of course. I flew up. I went and took their exams, and a few months later, I was flown off to New Orleans to interpret for a group of high-ranking military officers from Colombia as an official State Department interpreter. So my world went from end-all, be-all state court interpreter in Pitt County, Greenville, North Carolina. That's my worldview, to all of a sudden becoming an official interpreter for the U.S. Department of State.
That's a great opportunity as well. It's a great honor.
Great opportunity, and just changed my career. And that opened up a whole new world. I had no idea that State Department interpreting existed. I had no idea that conference interpreting existed. I had heard of the UN, but that was a pipe dream for me.
Yeah, I think it was a great also coincidence that you started from the beginning, that this was getting established there, as you mentioned. So you get to know the whole procedure while it was starting out there locally. I'm always surprised how different is the situation per country or state, or even like between Europe and the US, and maybe also in Asia and Africa. The state of a professional translator, and let alone the sworn translator or certified translator, even court interpreter, which is actually a whole different sector, if we can say, of our profession. So for you, it started like as a coincidence. By coincidence, you got your first paid client before you actually become a professional translator. Then you found out your passion, it was that. So then you got certified, and since then you've been working. So it's very interesting, your story, because it's very different from whatever the other speakers have said here. And I assume that's the reality. Yes, some people, they might start the other way around. Coincidence might bring them to opportunities, as you mentioned. And I'm always mentioning to mentees, don't try to go after your passion. Sometimes the passion comes to us or find us. And this is definitely something really great and inspiring that you shared with us right now. And I would like to add that in the ebook that I have 60 ways to get a client, there is one person who replied, and I have included that as a getting client way for translators and interpreters, that you go locally to the authorities and you ask, for example, the court locally that you're registered, if there is an open position or opportunity for you to work for them. So I think more or less your situation or how you got your first client applies to that specific way of getting clients of my book. Great story. Thank you for sharing that with us. So the next common question is actually if you remember since then a scale-up moment, that's a very good project that you undertook, or a very profitable client that you got that actually felt freedom out of your profession. Do you have any such success stories you would like to share?
That's a great question. I can't think of any single defining moment. Other than the opportunity to interview and work for the State Department. All of my growth over the years as a client, first as an interpreter, and then in 2002 I started my own company because I had clients that I was servicing, but then the State Department had me flying away for 3 weeks, and so my clients needed interpreters. And so I recruited and trained other local interpreters to help cover the medical appointments. And then I reached out to other colleagues that I work with through the courts to help cover court assignments. And so it was more about, hey, can you do this? And my answer is,
yes,
sure. Yeah, I think so. And so all of my growth has been somewhat organic. For example, I'd work with a client, and the lawyer says, oh, hey, by the way, I've got some tapes that need to be translated or transcribed and translated. Can you do that? Well, I'm the only certified interpreter around at that time in a couple 100-mile radius. And so I am the go-to person, the expert. Nobody else knows about it. And so I say, sure, I can try. So I learned what it took to produce transcription translation. And I started doing that. And say, oh, hey, by the way, we've got these other documents. Can you do this? Sure. Oh, hey, we need this done in Arabic. Can you help us find somebody? Sure, reach out to my connections. Oh, Javier, we got a conference this week.
When you talk about that. I see it as a characteristic of your personality that we miss in our profession. Like very rarely we see that characteristic of being available or a problem solver to our clients in our profession. I don't know what is your perception, but definitely is an entrepreneurial skill, if we can say, to be the solution to their problem, to be available whenever they need you, even if it's not strictly to what you offer. So I find it very hard to see that in our profession. Other translators from other translator offering and having such a skill, and definitely helps to build a business and grow yourself. And also it's a very common answer to my question about scale up moments, that usually the most common answer is that their career was scalable itself, but not with any specific scale up moment. My career, on the other hand, has had a couple of them that they were very significant moments. And this is why I really like to ask that. There were moments that actually I made in 1 week what I used to make in terms of money in 3 months, or there was a very high paying client of mine that I was actually able to scale up and issue 5-figure invoices. So I remember those scale up moments in my career. And this is why I find it really interesting to ask. In general, I don't want many details on that. If you have had such experiences, but I totally get your point.
So I can definitely say that when COVID hit, there was an opportunity there. So I've always done interpreter training at least a couple times a year because people have asked me. Again, this was the first time I was asked was probably in 2005 or 2006 that another interpreter who saw that I had passed the exam and was working well as an interpreter said, "Hey, my wife is interested in learning how to pass the exam. She's already taken this course from this other person. Can you put something together?" Sure, why not? So I put a workshop together, and it was successful. And I started doing that at least once or twice a year, but all in person. And people said to me, "How, Javier, can you do this remotely?" Like, no, I cannot teach remotely. I don't want to sit in front of a computer. I'm a people person. I like engaging with my audience. I like, feeding off the energy. The online isn't for me. Well, I had, go ahead.
Now you cannot do else house. And so now the situation has changed. Yeah,
exactly. The situation changed. I had back in March, I had a training. I was going to teach a 40-hour course for social services interpreters. It was going to be in person. And of course, there was a shutdown, but they still needed the training. I still needed to get paid, and I still needed to work. And so I said, I can do it online. But going into one of the things that I want to talk about was about knowing what resources were there. One of the things that was blocking me was I didn't feel I had a place to do it. I didn't know, how am I going to teach online? I want everything that I do to be as professional as I would like it to seem. Right?
Yeah.
And so I happened to have a friend who has a photography shop, and I had done a couple online remote interpreting sessions from my house, and it just didn't really work very well because I wasn't set up for it. So I got his advice. I looked online, found what's a good microphone for this? Okay, this is the top quality. So now I invested in a good microphone. I invested in a good camera. I researched. My friend from the photography shop set me up with
I remember we were discussing that when COVID hit, or even a bit earlier. I remember we were discussing about the equipment. So what you were trying to tell us is actually that COVID for you was an opportunity. So you found an opportunity in between the crisis for you, that you made another income source, or you actually increased the income from that source, the training. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
Exactly right. And so I did one webinar. I was asked by an association if I could do it. And of course, my answer was, yeah, I'll do it. I invested, I had the lights.
Yeah.
My friend came over and helped me set it up to make it look right. I failed a bunch of times trying to get it to work. And then it got to the place where I felt that I could do something that looked good. I didn't want to have the content's there, I can speak, but unless it looks good, I'm not going to do it. Because the clients expect a certain level of professionalism, and I want that to be in everything. And so once I passed that first hurdle, I said, okay, well, maybe I'll teach my own webinar on my own. So I threw it out there and had 30 people sign up. Wow, this is interesting. Now let me do another one. Another 30, 40 people signed up. I'm like, okay, Javier, can you do? And then I always ask, what else would you guys like?
You're getting into our topic.
Yes.
You're getting into our topic right now, and I want to hold you because I have one question before we get into diversification. Because what you're describing is actually the topic. So you got into diversifying your own services, providing an extra service that you saw that there was a need or maybe request out there, and you actually were able to find out a way to solve the challenges that we all of us had to face. Challenges about being visible online, turning everything online. So I think that those challenges during COVID was for all of us that we provide online services or offline services like trainings, seminars. So it was a challenge for all of us. So before we get into that, it's very interesting and actually is the practical example of what we're going to describe your story. Beside the trainings that you mentioned, the webinars, what's your connection, if you have any connection with mentoring? Have you ever been a mentor? So I know that you're a trainer. Do you have any relationship with that mentoring in general, being a mentor or a mentee?
Not
topic.
not with the specific title of mentor or mentee, but I have always worked in associations. I was a member of the Carolina Association of Translators and Interpreters. I was on the board for many years, and I'm currently the president now. And I'm always available to answer people's questions. And so I get a lot of interpreters who are interested either in becoming interpreters and translators, who maybe would like to work with my company. And I sit down and have as many conversations as I can. I'm always here to help out anybody who's interested and kind of share the knowledge that I have. So I think there was a few years ago somebody who'd asked me specifically to mentor them, and it never fell through. But I have stayed in contact with people throughout the years, and there are interpreters and translators who reach out to me.
Many translators, they provide that in an unstructured way, or they might have been mentoring others, but in an unstructured way, not a formal way to call themselves as mentors. This is why I always ask that question, because sometimes we end up being mentors without even knowing that. And since you're a member of our Mentoring for Translators group, people that they might need to get in touch with you, now they have the chance and they know your background. Hello to South Africa, hello to India, hello to the Netherlands. We have great people with us today. Michelle de Jong is asking one question, but I think it's about Austria. So how do you deal with text and images? But we can reply to that at the end of the discussion because it's not relevant to our topic, but definitely something as professional translator, we need to know how to do that. So you see the chat, Javier, is that correct? So you see
yes.
Great. So let's start because I see great interest. I think the most common question about our topic would be, okay, now what? We have had the crisis. We lost many clients, especially for interpreters. I see in my mentoring programs, half of the people they join are interpreters, either from Italy or the countries that they were hit, the most by the pandemic and the crisis that we, all of us worldwide, live right now. What's your opinion on that? You are an interpreter, you're very active there, you are president of this local association, so you know what are the things there and how people can diversify, how can interpreters or translators diversify so as to protect their career, to remain, and not to keep doing that as a side hustle, This is why we keep on protecting your career through diversification. So let us get into our topic.
So what can you do, right, as an interpreter, translator, language professional? Well, the first thing is you have to know what your abilities are. And you, as a translator or interpreter, in order to do the job professionally, you have to have a high level of skill in a lot of different things, right? use of languages, your understanding, your ability to comprehend quickly, find solutions quickly. That's what interpreting is. Find a solution for this term now. Go. You're on the spot. So knowing how to handle pressure situations, knowing how to study, because you cannot interpret what you don't understand. You can't translate what you don't understand. So if you're doing this work, you already have these skill sets, right? If you are a professional, competent interpreter, you've got people skills because people are hiring you repeatedly. You wouldn't have a career otherwise. So know that those skills are transferable into other things.
Can you give us an example? Can you give us an example of that, how our skills can be?
Sure. Well, in addition to, yes, in addition to, if you're able to interpret and study for a medical conference, well, those same skills apply if it's a legal conference or a conference on turkey production or a conference on who knows what, 5G networks.
Yeah.
You know how to study. Just because you've only done, like I did, I only knew medical interpreting and I only knew legal interpreting. I knew nothing about conference interpreting, but I knew how to interpret.
Though you have covered the two most difficult. For me, medical is very difficult to get into if you haven't had any experience before.
Yes, but if you know how to do the job well, right? If you know how to do site translation, if you know how to do consecutive, if you know how to do simul, then it's a matter of just swapping out the vocabulary and swapping out the codes of ethics and protocols, right? Those are easier to learn. It's easier to learn terminology than it is to learn how to interpret. And so you may think, I'm only good at medical interpreting because it's all I've done. I could never do other types of interpreting. Well, it's because you probably haven't tried. The basic skill set is there. It's just a matter of learning new words, and learning words, learning terminology is much easier than learning how to do simul or consec or cite at a high level. So knowing that your existing skills are already transferable in different areas. I never knew that conference interpreting was a possibility for me where I live. In Greenville, North Carolina, there are no international conferences. But because I studied, I dedicated, I put the work in. This is also the big part, right? You can say, I want to do this, but if you haven't done the legwork, if you haven't studied, if you haven't perfected, you can't ever perfect your skills. If you haven't been constantly working and building your skills, then it's all a pipe dream. But if you are a competent professional, then other opportunity, you don't have to be limited by the opportunities that you're currently in right now.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree. But I suppose that there are some soft skills needed as well, like adaptability or flexibility, to be able to get to new market or niches. Can you hear me? Because I see that.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
There's a problem with the connection, but now we're back. Also, we have Sterling Ellsworth. He says, this is a wonderful series, guys. Thank you for organizing it. So Sterling, in order to be able to see your comment, you need to click the StreamYard link so as your name to appear in the comments as well. Thank you for your kind words. So that was a great example that you mentioned, Javier. This is a great way, actually, to start getting clients if you feel like your niche or your specialization is right now no need, for example. So let's go to the next one. Are you here with me? Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, but I see the problem with the connection. That's why I'm asking. Okay. Let's go to the next one.
The next question or next example?
Let's go to the next way that you feel or you have a suggestion for people that they can. Now I hear my voice.
So yeah, so so knowing that your skills are transferable,
okay.
How do people find you? Right,
exactly.
Networking, the social skills, the soft skills that you mentioned are so important. You can be the most precise technical interpreter or technical translator and be the expert in the language and the use, but if you're difficult to work with, nobody's going to call you for the next assignment. Your colleagues are not going to, when they're asked, hey, who's the best, Greek interpreter, Greek translator, like, call anybody except her, right? They're not going to mention. Let's say, hey, go to Virginia. She is, in addition to being a consummate professional, she's also a joy to work with.
Exactly. So, I don't know if you agree with that, but I've been listening to clients and they say that they prefer to work with a less, maybe, competent translator or interpreter if they're easy, or if they meet the deadlines, or if they reply quickly their emails, or they can communicate the right way in a professional way. But in your opinion, what do you define as difficult to work with?
Oh, difficult to work with.
People to know, because sometimes we're difficult to work with and we might not know that. And I find it a lot with the translators that I outsource or delegate projects and I work with. So it's not a taken, okay? What we discuss here as business people is not a taken in our profession, like it's very clear to all of us. That's why I'm asking you.
So yeah, it's there are a lot of different ways, right? Mm-hmm. Translators who complain. They get there, maybe their case isn't being heard, and so they complain. I was scheduled to be here 10 o'clock. Why can't we start yet? Right? Being overly demanding of their clients, not being reliable. Right? Of course, I mean this is base level, right? If I call you, and you don't respond, you say the translation is going to be here at 5 o'clock, and it's 6 o'clock and I don't have it yet, it may be perfect, but I needed a good enough translation at 5 o'clock, and so the deadline got blown. Interpreters who when are presented challenges can't think about the solution. Many times, let's say we're doing simultaneous interpreting in a meeting, and all of a sudden the equipment fails, right? You can sit there and complain about it and complain the microphone isn't working, or you can say, okay, we can do this in consecutive until the IT fixes it, right? Because the meeting still has to happen. The people still need to have the communication. And you can offer this service and say, well, I can do this consec. Well, no, I wasn't hired to do consec. I only do simul. Well, you're not helping the client at that moment, right? So being able to react when adversity, when the microphone goes out, can you switch? Can you do something else? Or do you just sit back with your arms crossed and complain, well, I can't do my job because the speaker isn't doing this and I can't hear, nobody gave me the problem, right? You're difficult to work with. Also being difficult with your colleagues. We've all met interpreters who
teamwork
don't believe in teamwork and believe that they are the star, and that if they're working with somebody who they believe is below them, will treat them as such. That's visible to everybody, not just the interpreting team. So you have to not be difficult to work with your colleagues, and be reliable, well dressed professionally, on time for your client, and then just be nice. It's really not that hard. Right?
I find it rare in our profession. I know that some translators are very good company, and I find them in international conferences, but I know at the same time that some other are introverts, or they do not have those soft skills as we just described, and I see that in my everyday life. I sent, for example, a test translation to one translator, and she didn't reply back like, I received it, you'll have it by then. So I was asking, I was delegating a project that was a test, and she came back after 2 days with the sample translated. And of course, I have already given that to another translator. But what I'm trying to say is that what we consider as a common sense, for example, like when you get a project, you reply back at the same moment, telling the delivery time, or if you agree with the deadline and the price, and then you continue. It's not a very common sense to some people. So she thought that she would come back with the translated sample, for example, after 2 days. And this is a very recent example that I can share with you.
So,
Are
yeah.
you here? There's
a
connection.
Yeah, I know, I'm here. So, right, that will help you diversification. Well, going back to the topic, right? Because if a client has a need. Let's say you're hired to interpret, but you're also a capable translator. They don't like working with you. They're not going to offer, they're not going to ask you.
Of course.
Say, hey, can you also do this translation? But if you were there helping, solving problems, doing, a little bit above and beyond the work when you show up, right? You have conversations, you listen to your clients. You may hear a need that they have. And you can say, hey, by the way, I also do this, or I know somebody who can do that. Then there'll be, well, there's your opportunity. So the diversification, as we're getting back into this, into this field, right, or this topic, is can come in a couple different ways. One, it's the client who recognize, your client or your colleagues recognize something in you that either you've shown, you've demonstrated, or you've talked about. And they say, I remember last year, Virginia said that she does this as well. Oh, yeah, this comes up. Let me call Virginia because I remember that it was there. So the soft skills of being likable, being presentable, showing competency, showing mastering your skills, and listening to your clients' needs will sometimes the diversification will be forced upon you. They'll say, hey, we need you to do this. Can you do this? And you'll say, oh, I never thought about doing that. Absolutely. Now you've got a different income stream. Now you're also not just providing interpreting, but you're providing translating for this client.
Can I share an example, a very short story? Recently, we had the presentation of Dorota Pollax is providing localization courses online. And after our call or our session, she told me, you should create an online course for translators on how to sell. Like you see, this is example, like people are coming to you and giving you ideas because they might see something in you that you haven't recognized yourself. So do not underestimate people's opinion on your skills and what you might be able to offer or provide.
That's
funny.
That's exactly how like my career has started, right? But there are two driving forces behind it. One, now my consistent goal of wanting to be as professional and as good as I possibly could be is what opened these doors to me. Had I not studied so hard to become a state level certified interpreter at Pitt County, I would have never been put in the advanced group. I would have been put in the intermediate or beginner group in Agnes Hari. And that would have been absolutely fine. And I would have met my goal of being a state certified court interpreter and probably had a nice, decent career doing that. But because I went the extra step, I got private tutoring. I invested in every book I could. I joined the associations. I learned from colleagues. That put me into the next level, into the advanced group. And that's where Mark Fallow saw something in me and said, hey, you're not just good at this, you can also do this. So the projecting that and having the confidence in yourself and your abilities, and the actually having the abilities, rather, right? You can have confidence, but you actually need the abilities. But right, so putting that in, and clients see that, your colleagues will see that, oh, this is somebody who's done much more than this at this level. They're able to do that, and so diversification can come to you in this way.
We have a great question from Maria Baker. In order to be able to show your name, you need to click again the StreamYard link that you find in the description box to give permission to this app so as for us to be able to show your name. But do you see the question? She says, delicate subject. Do you always say yes no matter what are you asked? For example, interpreting and translation are different tasks that require different skills, for example.
Sure, absolutely. No, I don't say yes, no matter what I'm asked. I say yes if I believe that I can do this or have some experience in doing this. And if I'm not, I'll be honest and say clients and say, hey, I don't have experience in this. And so, well, you're the only person that we can trust to do this. Can you try? And in that case, then it's, okay, let me learn how to do this and I'll do the best that I can. So simple answer is no. You don't always say, you definitely don't say yes to, oh yeah, I can do French interpreting, I can do Greek translation, I can do No, I'm good at this thing, and I can probably do some other things. So part of that is also investing in your continued growth as a professional.
Continuous professional development. And also, I think I mentioned earlier, Maria, the fact, for example, that I find medical translation interpreting very difficult myself, so as to step into that niche. And I know that I could have done so if I had followed, for example, specific courses, trainings, and about medical translation or interpreting in general. But I wouldn't say right now yes, because someone would tell me, can you please undertake this medical interpreting project? I would say no, or I would be able to find a solution for them or refer them to the right person or someone that I know that they are expert in that field. So please continue, Javier. I didn't want to
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Let's say you get that request to do medical interpreting and you say, no, I can't do it right now. And then 6 months later, you get the request again. Can you do this medical interpreting? No, I can't do it. And then your client continues asking, well, maybe that's life kind of telling you, hey, here's your sign. So this is when you take that course on medical interpreting, right? And then the next time they ask you, like, actually, yeah, now I can do it. So you have to be aware of what the world is offering you. And sometimes it'll be a one-off, like, hey, can you do this conference? No, I'm not capable. Okay, you'll never hear from that person again. But then they come back to you, say, hey, we like what you do. Can you do this? Can you do this? Okay, maybe I've got to start developing my skills. Case in point, real quick, with the transcription translation. I do a lot of forensic transcription.
We might open a whole new topic here about being overconfident or not confident enough about your skills. So this could be a whole new session about that topic, Maria. But definitely I see behind your words that fact, Javier, that I see that a lot through my mentees, that either they are overconfident, so they're always, yes, I can do that, but they end up providing low quality, or most commonly, they avoid projects, okay, because they feel that they cannot undertake. But most of the time, there's something that they could deal with if they could work a bit more time, or they could practice a new skill or something like that. So this is very common issue that I deal with my mentees.
You hit the nail on the head. We've all seen the overconfident interpreter and translator, but we see many more who have that and just need that little push. For me, I was asked to do a lot of forensic transcription translation, and I didn't know much about it, but I did the best that I could. Then I went to a workshop, a weekend workshop, and I learned the skills. And then I was asked to come give us a talk about my work because they recognized that. So then all of a sudden I had some credibility. I got validation. The other important part is that you're going to fail a lot in your career, and it's okay. So you can say, yes, I think I can do this, and you will probably, there's a good chance you may fail your first time or your second time. As a court interpreter, I can imagine how bad my interpretation was when I said yes, to do this. But at that time, there was nobody else available. There was really nobody else. And so I did to the best that I could. I have failed 1,000 times. I've made so many. I continue making mistakes professionally, with clients. And that's part of growth. And so you can't be scared to step out of your comfort zone as, well, I'm only doing medical interpreting in this conditions from 9 to 5 because I don't know if I can. Well, you never will know until you actually do try. And there are a few times where the world will end because of your misinterpretation, mistranslation, right? There are very few exceptions where this will happen. And
the key behind of that is the fact that you mentioned about code of ethics. Okay, if you are compliant with code of ethics or whatever is the professional association that you have, terms and conditions in a cooperation or whatever, that you are compliant with them, then I think that you are on the right path. Mistakes can happen. failures can happen. I think if you start with being compliant with our code of ethics or the code of ethics that your country or locally where you are based apply, then I think that's the basis. You have a saying here in your notes, Javier, that you say yes more often than not until you're sure you want to say no. So I think this is also an answer to Maria's question, or not?
Yeah. So why not say yes, right? Unless you're sure that the answer is no. If somebody were to say, hey, Javier, we need you to, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, come in this afternoon to interpret for a group of heart surgeons that are coming, I'm going to say no, because I know that I can't do this. If they say, hey, it's in a month, okay, I've never done that, but within a month, I know how to find the terminology, how to find the research, how to test myself, how to, become as good as I can. If you say it's in 6 months, I'm going to be your expert in 6 months, right? If I say no now, then I lose that opportunity. But I'm confident in my other skills, in how to research, how to study, how to learn quickly, how to process information, my good note taking, my good simultaneous, my translation skills, whatever it may be, right? So as long as it's within the wheelhouse, you can continue saying, sure, yes, in low-risk situations, right? Again, maintaining within your code of ethics and protocol, and that's part of being the professional. Right? That's part of the package. You don't go outside of the code of ethics to say yes to something because it's an opportunity. You have to be professional in all things. So you will, why not say yes? And then as a definite no. There are certain things I don't want to do anymore. So a client calls me and says, no, I don't want to do that. And that will also help help you diversify by limiting in a weird way, right? Instead of saying yes to everything, you say, no, I'm defining my path. I'm defining my career. And then within that, you can expand versus just saying yes to everything, the whole gamut of things. You define, I'm not going to do this. I'm not qualified to do that. You know what? I think I could do that. So let me go down that road. When you have those clear defining no's, then you see other opportunities within the existing yeses.
In my experience with the mentoring programs that I run and my mentees, I see that there is a problem with the confidence level there. And this is why I mentioned, because in order to be able to say yes and prepare yourself until the moment that you need to provide that service, it needs also a level of confidence that you are confident enough that you will be able in 1 month to be prepared for that specific meeting. So it means that you know also your skills, your capabilities, and so on behind of that. So this is why I mentioned that it's a combination of soft and hard skills. And what I see behind of successful translators and interpreters like you are, Javier, is this combination of soft skills and hard skills. And by soft skills, I mean the adaptation that you have, being flexible, easy to work with, as you mentioned, communication skills, being a problem solver. So there's a combination of things behind of successful, whatever we mean as a successful translator or interpreter in our profession.
I want to mention something. I see Sonia here mention that being humble as a professional is very important. And I could not agree more. The best interpreters that I have ever worked with in the world have been, and I don't think it's a flaw, or not a flaw, but rather an anomaly, that they are also the most humble people. They're the ones who are willing to help out their colleagues. It's not a closed pie. Is it closed pie? Is that the word I'm thinking? There's enough market out there for everyone. And I have seen interpreters who are not willing to give others the opportunity. No, I am the interpreter. I'm not going to allow anybody else into my group. I am the translator. But the ones who are the best in their fields have always been the ones who have always reached out and offered help to me and to other colleagues. And they don't brag. Their work stands for them, speaks for itself. It's those who say, oh yeah, I'm the best, hire me, come, marketing, being the loud, the loudest dog has the weakest bite, or there's some expression like that. If not, I just made it up. So yeah, being humble is a huge, huge part of the profession. Knowing your,
I was trying to tell you that I see the difference between translation and interpreting as a, we can say, sector, because I find more competitiveness in the interpreting sector. And this, the fact that you mentioned that some people, they don't want to refer other, I see it mostly in the interpreting part of our profession as a whole. And this is why sometimes interpreting is called like a closed profession rather than translation. And most probably you know that better than myself. And I don't know if this happens everywhere, but here in Greece, for example, it's very difficult if you're starting out to get into that field and start finding jobs, because there are 5 or 10 people maximum that they undertake the whole projects that they happen here in the country. So I don't know if this happens as well in your country. And a second thing that happens here, and I would love your opinion, is actually the court interpreting is very low paid, and rarely is undertaken by certified translators, usually and most often because those court cases are they include languages that very small part of the Greek community they speak, like the languages from Asia and Middle East and so on. So this is not very common language combinations for certified translators. So these are 2 different things, but I would love your opinion before we wrap up, because we're almost like 55 minutes live. Amazing.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Time flies, huh?
The time flies, yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely, well, the thing about interpreters is we're more visible, right? Because we're actually there. We meet the other colleagues, as opposed to translators who we only have contact via computer, right? Via email or phone call. So you're never going to get a group of translators together to work on a project in the same room. Very rarely. Everybody is more independent. And so the lack of visibility, I think, goes along with what you're saying about this idea. If I go to a conference and I'm an interpreter, I see the competition, right? Mm-hmm. I see the threat of, oh, that guy's good, I'm going to watch out for him, right? That's the mentality that some interpreters have. So they see and say, oh, I got to get ahead of this person because he's talking to the client. Let me go in and butt in, and so I can be in front, and they see me first. That's a very real thing that does happen in the interpreting world. The second thing about the low pay is that maybe, and this is another opportunity for diversification, right? When you start working in the courts, maybe the courts themselves are low paid, but there's going to be an attorney there who's going to have a very high paying client for a civil matter in the next year. And maybe the prosecution has a huge case and they're willing to pay the money, they've got the budget. So it could be that the court itself
opens the doors to more opportunities and more clients. Okay, clever, very clever.
Right? Because you're not just working for the court. Right? You're working for the court, but other people see you working, and there's other opportunities in there. And so again, if you walk into the courtroom and you're bristly, you complain about the heat, you complain about the cold, you're working through lunch, that attorney isn't going to say, oh, I've got a big case, let me call this guy because he seems so nice to work with.
That's a great advice. And if you are watching right now and you missed the live, you will be able to watch the recording and take a pen and paper, because Javier is full of practical advice that you can also use in order to get out of a slump and find a new client right now. So I don't know if you mentioned everything that you would love to mention today. Javier, is there anything missing before we wrap up?
Oh, there's 22 years of experience plus the hundreds and thousands of years of my colleagues' experience.
The notes that you had for today.
They shared with me.
So Liana says he had referrals from lawyers at the court. So great, Liana. That's what Javier just described.
So I guess to wrap up, the only thing that I guess to wrap up, right? The things to mention. One, invest in yourself. Right? If you don't invest in your training, continued training, because all of these skills are perishable. If you are stuck with your old 1995 Windows computer, well, you're not going to be able to do good translation now because clients are requiring updated software. So you have to invest in the software to do the job. Right now, all of us who work as conference interpreters have had to invest in equipment to work from home. Those who didn't got stuck behind and got left behind. And so you have to invest in whatever is required at that moment, and then also investing in your profession for the future, so that when you do get that medical call and you've said no for the last year, but you have been investing and studying on your own, that you're ready to say yes. The second part is the power of relationships and networking, and that's part of the soft skills. That's part of the professionalism of joining associations like EAPTI and many other associations, but showing up, being an active member, and your colleagues are probably going to be the ones that are going to open the next couple doors for you, as it was in my case, and many cases of colleagues that I know who do very well. It's because we work together on something, and they see, oh, Javier, I've got this opportunity. Can you help me with this? Or Alfonso, can you do that? I see my buddy Alfonso here. So investing in yourself, in your education, and investing and maintaining the professional networks are really the keys to diversification and protecting your career, and having the ability to try to say yes a little more often.
So they agree in the comments. If you see the comments, people they're saying, thank you for doing this great advice. Thank you. Ceciliana agrees 100%. Maria, you mentioned something. I see mentors and role models. I don't understand exactly where you're referring at. The last point that we didn't cover, and I don't know if we did, Javier, you mentioned here in your notes, know how to market yourself. This could be a whole session, but shortly, what do you mean?
So real quickly, a lot of people, even myself, I still don't like marketing myself. I don't like having I don't like the idea of selling. Throughout my career, all of my growth has been from referrals. Client sees me and says, "Hey, can you do this?" Or my colleagues say, "Hey, can you do this?" Well, I've launched this webinar side business, which is actually becoming very popular. And we're teaching 2 webinars a week. I've had to hire a team to help me. I'm bringing in instructors. But unless people know about it, they're not going to show up. You can be the most technically skilled, brilliant translator and know more about Greek language than anybody else. But if nobody knows, then you're not going to get called. And so,
yeah, nowadays the competition is such difficult. It didn't used to be like that when we started out. You started out late 90s, you mentioned early the new century. So it's not the same right now. I think the problem that I see the competition plus in combination with the pandemic and the crisis. And here in Greece, like we are forever in financial crisis since 2008, for example. So I see a need in developing those skills as well. And I know that you mentioned you don't like marketing and that you get clients through referrals, but for me, it's a great marketing skill that you have the fact that you show up. It's a great marketing skill that you prefer to go to the court interpreting, even though it's lower paid, because you get, for example, new clients or referrals by being present there, or you became a member of an association, or you are also a public speaker. Those are marketing, guys. We have in our mind marketing as something bad, okay? Yep. As translators, I think it's the right timing right now to get over those perceptions, okay? To find out why marketing is very good, why marketing is not exactly selling, why we shouldn't hate selling. The moment we realize that the value that we provide to our clients, we will stop hating selling. And definitely marketing isn't something that you need to go on a video every day, or you need to be wow or very, I don't know, visible all the time. No, marketing is something you need to choose 2 or 3 different strategies that they apply to your own situation and character and personality, and apply them in a consistent way so as to be visible to your clients. Because you mentioned the greatest thing that you mentioned is you might be the greatest translator, as you mentioned, Javier, but no one knows it. And nowadays referrals, okay, they work, but still you need to be visible so as to get referrals. Okay, that's at least my idea, unless you have anything else you would like to add.
You're you're exactly right. Marketing isn't just one type of thing. It doesn't mean just throwing a business card out everywhere, but it's all those things that you mentioned. Making your LinkedIn profile more presentable.
I have a 3-month program to sell through LinkedIn, and imagine people are asking me more. There are so many things that you can learn, and you can do it behind the scenes. You don't need to be visible. So definitely, Javier, the way that you've been doing, you love marketing, but marketing that applies to your own personality. The way that you feel confident, like you're not marketing or you're not selling your service, but you actually do. And this is, for me, the best way to provide marketing, or to market yourself and your services. Thank you so much, Javier. That was a pleasure. We are over an hour live together, and the time actually flew away. I would like to wrap up what you mentioned already. So if you would love to diversify based on Javier's advice here today, was like, listen to your clients and be ready to anticipate needs if they don't state them. Know what resources are out there and what's not. Build and maintain solid relationships the way that Javier mentioned, showing up, being an active member in the community. Know how to market yourself the way we described that today. Be willing to fail, and you go back and watch the recording because Javier described that in depth. And also, one strategy to protecting your career is to become the expert, and Javier gave a very practical advice and examples on that as well. Invest in yourself. If you can keep anything, okay, from our today, is actually invest in yourself, education, interest, passions. Say yes more often than no until you're sure you want to say no. Be the solution to your client's problem. And there is more than just the technical aspect of interpreting and translating. You have to be the whole package, as Javier described: reliable, trustworthy, easy to work with. And if you don't know what easy to work with means, okay, you can go back, watch the recording. And if you have any more questions for us, or if you are watching the replay, use the hashtag replay and tag me or Javier. If you have any questions for us, we would love to address them. So Michelle, yes, your question. There is the question about how to translate the text in an image. You would like to take that, Javier, or you would like to answer that in writing in our group, whatever you prefer?
So that's a very complex question.
Yeah, it's relevant. It's very technical. Yeah.
So dealing with text on images. I guess you would just have to translate directly into, I guess maybe the problem is trying to put the image into a cat tool, for example, which isn't going to work. You can look at PDF readers, or not PDF readers, OCR.
OCR, yes, of course. And also we can do the work for you. Michelle, this is such a simple way to solve. If you just Google it, or if you go to a translator's Facebook group or forums, you can ask that question. You can get so many resources on how to do that. For example, I use Abifine Reader, but there are so many tools out there. And invest in yourself should be such a tool. Invest in buying a professional tool to actually do that work for you. It's a part of our profession. We should be professional, and by having such a tool that solves that problem on how to be able to translate the text in the picture is a part of us being professionals. So Javier, I don't know if you would like to add anything.
Yeah, if those tools fail, which they will, you have to think of a solution, and it may just be you have to recreate the document from scratch, because that's what you have to do. And so you can't say, oh, well, I can't work with this tool, I can't work with this text because I can't put it through my system. Well, that's not thinking about the solution. That's thinking about your problem and not the client's problem. So many times I've been given a birth certificate to translate, and there's no way to put it in the machine. There's no way to scan it.
If it's handwritten, for example, yes, you need to go and do it.
Exactly. So old-fashioned way, how do we do this before OCR? Well, you looked at the document and you recreated it in the language. So there's technical solutions. They don't always work, but you always have to have a backup. And that's the old-fashioned way, recreate the document. It's more work, but that's what needs to get done.
I think, Michelle, we gave you several different answers here. That's what I didn't want to do. She didn't want to recreate from scratch, but I know that there are OCR tools, expensive, less expensive. There is a small PDF, which actually you can start with a free version, and then after 3 PDFs that you convert, then they change. So also JPEG, you can convert into documents through MyAbbey Fine Reader. So there are so many OCR tools. Go and check for an OCR if you don't want to do it from scratch, but that's irrelevant. Then you need to ask your client. I don't want Michelle to go into that topic because our sessions here are business, translation business related and not the actual translation itself. I hope that actually we gave you some practical examples of how to do it. You're welcome. Javier, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Very interesting, very practical ways and advice and instruction you gave here. I hope that some translators, they find it as an opportunity to restart their career if they are right now, at the moment that they face, for example, the results of pandemic and COVID. And we would love to address any questions that you might have. Use the hashtag replay. Tag Javier is a member of our Mentoring for Translators group. You can reach Javier directly. We will share Javier's contact details in the comments later on. And definitely Javier will continue the discussion in the comments if you have any question you would like us to address in the Mentoring for Translators group. So thank you all of you. We were live on LinkedIn, YouTube channel, Facebook public page, and Facebook Mentoring for Translators group. We'll see you next Friday, same time, with another speaker. And Javier, thank you so much. I hope to see you in person one day again after COVID.
Hopefully soon, my friend. Thank you so much for having me.
So you stay here with me and we just end the broadcast. Thank you guys. Bye-bye for now. Have a lovely weekend.